Welcome to the Honeyed Leaf, where every cup of tea comes with a story. I'm so glad you're here. If you enjoy gentle mysteries that help you sleep, please subscribe so you never miss a visit to Willowbrook. Tonight, we're returning to the peaceful village, where Clara Whitmore is about to find herself drawn into another gentle mystery. Before we begin, find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you'd like, and let yourself relax. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. Just let the story carry you peacefully towards sleep. Now, let's visit Willowbrook together. Chapter 1. The First Sculpture. February arrived in Willowbrook with bitter cold and clear skies, the kind of cold that froze everything solid and made breath visible in clouds. Clara bundled up each morning for the walk to the Honeyed Leaf, grateful for the warmth of the shop once she arrived. The village fountain in the square had frozen weeks ago, as it did every winter. A simple stone fountain, dry in winter months, it became a solid block of ice when temperatures dropped. Usually it was just an icy mound, functional but unremarkable. On the morning of February 3rd, Clara walked past the fountain and stopped in surprise. The ice had been transformed, carved into an elaborate sculpture of a swan, wings spread, neck curved gracefully. It was beautiful, professional quality. The detail was extraordinary. Individual feathers visible in the wings, the curve of the beak precise and elegant. The morning sun caught the ice, making it sparkle. Clara wasn't the only one who noticed. Several villagers had stopped to admire it, taking photos, marvelling at the artistry. "Who did this?" Mrs. Pembroke asked, arriving beside Clara. "I have no idea. It wasn't here yesterday evening when I walked home." "It's stunning. This took real skill and time. Someone worked overnight to create this." They examined the sculpture from all angles. No signature, no indication of the artist. Just beautiful ice art where plain frozen fountain had been. Throughout the day, everyone talked about the swan. Customers streamed into the Honeyed Leaf sharing theories. Maybe we have a professional ice sculptor in the village. Could it be an art student practicing? Perhaps someone from outside Willowbrook created it. But no one could identify the artist, and no one had seen anyone working on it overnight. That evening, Clara walked past the fountain again. In the fading light, the swan looked even more magical, catching the last rays of sun. She noticed something she'd missed in the morning, tiny details etched into the base. Small fish swimming beneath the swan, delicate ripples suggesting water. The artist had thought about every element. The next morning, February 4th, brought a surprise. The swan was gone. In its place, a completely different sculpture, a leaping dolphin caught mid-jump, water droplets frozen in the air around it, just as detailed, just as beautiful, but entirely new. Clara stared in amazement. The artist had created a second sculpture overnight, replacing the first. This pattern continued. Each morning brought a new ice sculpture. February 5th. A family of rabbits huddled together. February 6th, an elaborate castle with towers and battlements. February 7th, a tree with bare branches reaching skyward. Each sculpture was different. Each was exquisitely detailed. Each appeared overnight, replacing the previous day's work. The village became obsessed. People checked the fountain every morning to see the new creation. They photographed each sculpture, shared images on social media. Willowbrook's mysterious ice sculptor became locally famous. But no one could determine who was doing it, or how they managed to work undetected every night. On February 8th, old Tom Fletcher came to the Honeyed Leaf with an observation. "I've been watching from my window at night. My cottage has a view of the square. Around 2 in the morning, I see a figure working at the fountain. Just one person, working alone with tools and a lamp." "Can you see who it is?" Clara asked eagerly. "Too far away and too dark. Just a silhouette. But they work for hours, from about midnight until 4 or 5 in the morning. Then they pack up and leave before dawn. Whoever it is has stamina and dedication." Clara decided to investigate more actively. That night, she positioned herself at a window in the Honeyed Leaf with a clear view of the fountain. She waited, cold but determined. Around midnight, as Tom had reported, a figure approached the fountain. They carried a bag of tools and set up a small battery-powered work light. Then they began to work. Clara watched, fascinated as the figure carved and shaped the ice. She couldn't see details from this distance, but she could see the dedication, careful, methodical work, no rushing. Hours passed. The figure never stopped except for brief breaks. Around 4:30, as the first hints of dawn appeared, they packed up and left. Clara tried to follow but lost them in the pre-dawn darkness. The figure moved quickly, clearly familiar with the village streets. By the time Clara reached the street corner where she'd last seen them, they'd vanished. The next morning revealed another masterpiece, a phoenix rising from flames, the ice carved to suggest both fire and feathers. "And why now?" Mrs. Pembroke added. "February is the coldest month, hardest time to work outside. Why choose the most difficult conditions?" They couldn't answer these questions. Over the following days, Clara tried several times to identify the sculptor. She staked out different vantage points, tried to follow them, even considered approaching them directly while they worked. But something stopped her each time. There was something sacred about the artist's anonymity, their solitary dedication. Clara found herself respecting the mystery rather than needing to solve it. Let the artist have their privacy. The village was receiving beautiful gifts. That should be enough. But Clara's curiosity remained. By February 15th, the village had witnessed 12 different sculptures. Each morning brought excitement. What would today's creation be? A pod of whales, a mountain landscape, a flock of birds in flight, a carousel horse, dragons intertwined. Each sculpture told a story, showed imagination, demonstrated incredible skill. People began to wonder, would this continue indefinitely? Or would the mysterious artist eventually stop? On February 16th, something different happened. The sculpture that morning, a pair of hands reaching toward each other, almost touching, included a small plaque frozen into the base. Clara was first to notice it. She knelt to read the inscription. "Beauty is meant to be shared, not kept. Art is meant to be experienced, not possessed. These sculptures are my gift to Willowbrook. Treasure the moment." This message felt significant. These sculptures are my gift. Past and present tense mixed together. Treasure the moment. As if moments were fleeting, temporary. Clara wondered if the artist was preparing to stop, if this was building toward an ending. That evening, she returned to the fountain and found something she'd missed earlier. Another small note tucked into the ice, sealed in plastic. She carefully extracted it. The handwritten message read, "I leave soon for new opportunities. These sculptures are my farewell gift, my way of saying thank you to the village that was home. I hope they bring joy." So that was it. The artist was leaving Willowbrook. The sculptures were a goodbye. A beautiful, generous goodbye, but a goodbye nonetheless. Clara felt both sad and moved. Someone was leaving, and rather than departing quietly, they were creating beauty, giving gifts, making memories. It was a lovely way to say farewell. But who? Who was leaving Willowbrook that no one had heard about? Clara started asking around discreetly. Did anyone know of someone planning to move away soon? Several people mentioned possibilities. Young Danny Morrison was headed to university in autumn, but that wasn't soon enough. The Chen's daughter had moved abroad last year. Tom's grandson visited from London but didn't live here. None of the possibilities quite fit. They needed someone with ice sculpting skills, someone leaving very soon, someone who cared deeply about Willowbrook. On February 18th, the sculpture was a heart, simple, elegant, perfectly formed. The message this time: love to this village, gratitude for years of kindness. I'll carry memories of this place wherever I go. The emotion in the words was palpable. This person truly loved Willowbrook. They weren't leaving because they wanted to, but because opportunity called them elsewhere. Clara became more determined to identify them, not to stop them or interfere, but to acknowledge their gift properly, to say thank you and goodbye. That night, she tried a different approach. Instead of watching from indoors, she waited outside, hidden but close. When the figure arrived at midnight, Clara was near enough to see details. Young, bundled in winter gear, moving with practiced confidence. They worked for about an hour before Clara slowly approached. "I don't want to disturb you. I just wanted to say thank you." The figure startled, turned. In the lamplight, Clara recognized the face. Nina Petrov, the quiet young woman who'd lived in Willowbrook for the past 5 years. She worked remotely for a tech company, kept to herself, rarely socialized. Clara had served her tea dozens of times but never knew her well. Nina looked frightened at first, then resigned. "You discovered me. I was hoping to finish without anyone knowing who I was." "May I stay and watch? I won't disturb you. I just want to understand." Nina hesitated, then nodded. "I suppose it doesn't matter now. I leave in a week anyway." Clara sat on a nearby bench, bundled against the cold, and watched Nina work. The young woman's skill was remarkable. She shaped ice with various tools, chisels, scrapers, files, transforming the frozen fountain into a leaping deer, delicate and graceful. As she worked, Nina talked. "I learned ice sculpting in Russia. My grandmother was a sculptor there. She taught me when I was young. I moved to Willowbrook 5 years ago for work. Remote tech job, could live anywhere. I chose here because it was quiet and beautiful. But I never really connected with people. I'm shy, awkward at socializing. I attended events but always felt like an outsider." "But you lived here 5 years," Clara said gently. "You're part of the community." "I never felt like it. I was just someone who lived here, not someone who belonged. But I loved the village. The kindness I observed, even if I wasn't part of it. The beauty of the place, the sense of tradition. So when I got offered an amazing job opportunity in Scotland, head of my department, huge career advancement, I was thrilled but also sad. I wanted to leave something behind, something that said I'd been here and I'd appreciated it. Ice sculptures felt right, temporary but beautiful, like my time here." Clara understood. "Why did you replace them each night instead of letting them accumulate?" "Because the fountain can only hold one at a time, and because art is about the moment. Each sculpture exists for one day. People see it, appreciate it, then it's gone and something new appears. That's the point. Beauty doesn't have to last forever to matter." Nina worked through the night, and Clara stayed, watching and occasionally talking. She learned about Nina's life, her childhood in Russia, her move to England, her career in tech that had nothing to do with art. "Ice sculpting is my secret passion, my grandmother's gift to me. I don't do it professionally, just for myself, for joy. And now, as a gift to Willowbrook." As dawn approached and the deer sculpture neared completion, Nina looked tired but satisfied. "This has been my routine for 3 weeks. Work all day at my computer, sculpt all night at the fountain, sleep a few hours, repeat. It's exhausting but fulfilling. Each sculpture is a memory, a moment captured in ice. By the time I leave, I'll have created about 25 sculptures, 25 gifts, 25 ways of saying thank you and goodbye." "When do you leave?" Clara asked. "February 25th. 4 more days of sculpting, then I'm done." Nina finished the deer as the sun rose. They both looked at it, graceful, mid-leap, capturing motion in frozen stillness. "Beautiful," Clara said. "Thank you for creating these, and thank you for trusting me enough to let me watch tonight." Nina smiled, tired but genuine. "Thank you for understanding, for not trying to stop me or make it into something public. Will you keep my secret? Let me finish these last few days anonymously." "Of course," Clara promised. "But Nina, after you're gone, may I tell people who created the sculptures? I think the village should know, should understand that these were goodbye gifts from someone who loved this place." Nina considered. "After I'm gone, yes. You can tell them, but not before." They parted as the village began to wake. Clara went home to catch a few hours of sleep. Nina presumably did the same. Over the following days, Clara kept the secret. She watched the daily sculptures appear, a lighthouse, a sailing ship, a family of owls, a wizard with a staff. Each one showed Nina's skill and imagination. And Clara watched the village respond with delight, never knowing they were witnessing someone's farewell gift. 4 more days of sculptures. Then Nina would leave, and the ice art would stop. The mystery would be solved only after the mystery maker was gone. Chapter 2. The Final Sculptures. On February 22nd, 3 days before Nina's departure, the sculpture was particularly moving. A figure of a person with arms outstretched, embracing the world. The base had another message. 3 days remain, 3 more gifts, treasure each moment. People photographed the sculpture extensively, sensing these creations were approaching an end. Clara visited Nina that evening at her cottage. She found the young woman packing boxes, preparing for the move. Her small home was mostly bare, belongings sorted into take and donate piles. Nina looked exhausted. "How are you holding up? You can't have been sleeping much." "I'm surviving on adrenaline and stubbornness," Nina admitted, "but it's worth it. Each sculpture feels important, like I'm leaving pieces of myself in the ice in the village. When I'm gone, part of me will remain in people's memories of these sculptures." "Have you told anyone else you're leaving? Friends? Neighbours?" Nina shook her head. "I don't have close friends here. That's my own fault. I never put in the effort to build relationships. I attended events but stood at the edges. I shopped at local stores but never lingered to chat. I was friendly but never friendly enough to make friends. So there's no one to say goodbye to, except the village itself. That's what the sculptures are, my goodbye to Willowbrook as a whole." Clara felt sad about this. "Nina, you could have connected with people. The village is welcoming." "I know, but I'm awkward, painfully shy. I freeze up in social situations. It's easier to be alone than to risk embarrassing myself. So I chose alone. But I still loved this place, still appreciated it. The sculptures are my way of expressing that without having to be social about it." They talked for an hour. Clara learned more about Nina's new job, a significant promotion, exciting challenges, chance to lead a team. Nina was thrilled about the opportunity, but sad to leave. "Willowbrook is the first place I've felt truly safe. Quiet enough for my nature, but alive enough to feel connected. I'll miss it, but I can't pass up this opportunity." "Of course not. And Nina, after you've settled in Scotland, perhaps you'll visit." "Maybe. Or maybe this needs to be a clean break. Start fresh somewhere new, try again to be social and make connections. Use Willowbrook as a lesson in what not to do." Clara understood, though she wished Nina would be kinder to herself. On February 23rd, 2 days before departure, the sculpture was a compass. The base message, 2 days left. Each direction leads somewhere new. Thank you for being my North Star. The symbolism was clear. Nina navigating toward new horizons, but remembering Willowbrook as her guiding point. People sensed the sculptures were building toward something. "Do you think they'll stop soon?" Customers asked Clara at the honeyed leaf. "The messages feel like a countdown." Clara couldn't reveal what she knew. "Perhaps the artist has to leave for some reason. We should appreciate each sculpture while we can." That night, Clara watched Nina work on the fountain. The young woman created an hourglass, sand frozen mid-flow. "Time running out," Nina explained. "Tomorrow is my last sculpture. Then I pack the final boxes, load the moving truck and drive to Scotland. My Willowbrook chapter ends." "What will tomorrow's sculpture be?" "Something special. I've been planning it for weeks. It needs to be perfect. My final gift." Nina worked until dawn, perfecting every detail of the hourglass. Clara noticed she added something else. Tiny words etched into the ice. Barely visible, but there. Moments matter. On February 24th, Nina's last day in Willowbrook, the village woke to find the hourglass sculpture. The message resonated with everyone. Time was precious. Moments mattered. People took extra time admiring this sculpture, sensing it might be one of the last. "I hope the sculptures continue," Mrs. Pembroke said to Clara. "They've become part of our winter, part of what makes Willowbrook special." Clara knew they wouldn't continue. Tomorrow morning, there would be one final sculpture. Then nothing. The fountain would return to being just frozen ice. The mystery would end. That evening, Clara went to Nina's cottage to say a private goodbye. Nina's belongings were packed in her car and a small rental truck. She'd leave at dawn after completing the final sculpture. "I'm ready," Nina said. "Nervous about the new job, sad to leave, but ready for the next chapter." "The final sculpture, will it be goodbye?" "It will be thank you. Goodbye and thank you combined." They hugged awkwardly but warmly. "Thank you for understanding me," Nina said, "for not judging my shyness or my choice to stay isolated, for appreciating the sculptures for what they were, gifts from someone who couldn't give themselves but could give art." "You gave more than you realise," Clara assured her. "These sculptures have brought joy to hundreds of people. They'll be remembered long after the ice melts." Nina smiled, tears in her eyes. "That's what I hoped for. To be remembered not as the quiet woman who lived here 5 years, but as the artist who left beauty behind. That's a better legacy." That night, Clara didn't watch Nina work. She stayed home, giving the artist privacy for her final creation. She imagined Nina at the fountain, working through the night with extra care, crafting something meaningful. Hours passed. Around 4 a.m, Clara heard a car drive past. Nina leaving Willowbrook, heading to Scotland and her new life. The next morning, February 25th, Clara walked to the fountain with the rest of the village. Everyone wanted to see the final sculpture. They weren't disappointed. Nina had created something extraordinary. The entire fountain had been transformed into a 3-dimensional scene, the village itself, in miniature. Every building recognisable, the church with its spire, the shops on Main Street, the cottages scattered around, the honeyed leaf prominently featured, all carved in ice, detailed and beautiful. In the centre of the miniature village stood a figure, a person with arms raised, releasing doves into the sky. The symbolism was clear. Someone letting go, releasing beauty into the world, saying goodbye. The base had a final message, longer than previous ones. To Willowbrook. "Thank you for 5 years of safety and beauty. Thank you for being home even when I couldn't let myself fully belong. These sculptures are my gift and my goodbye. I hope they brought moments of joy. I hope they reminded you that beauty can appear unexpectedly and doesn't need to last forever to matter. May you continue to find magic in ordinary moments. With love and gratitude, your quiet neighbour who finally found a voice through ice. Farewell." The village stood in silence, reading the message, studying the intricate miniature. Then someone started applauding. Others joined. Soon everyone was clapping, honouring the anonymous artist, celebrating the gift they'd received. Clara felt tears on her cheeks. Nina had accomplished what she'd set out to do, leave a beautiful farewell that would be remembered. Chapter 3. Discovering the artist. The miniature village remained frozen for 3 days before temperatures rose and it began to melt. People photographed it extensively, not wanting to lose any detail. The message sparked intense discussion. Your quiet neighbour? So it was someone who lived here. Who finally found a voice through ice. Someone shy or isolated. Farewell. Someone who'd left. People tried to determine who it might be. Names were suggested, ruled out, but no one thought of Nina. She'd been too quiet, too invisible. No one knew she'd moved away. Clara kept her promise. She waited. On the 4th day, when the sculpture had completely melted and returned to just frozen fountain, she began to tell people. She started with Mrs. Pembroke and Eleanor. "I know who created the sculptures, and I know why." She explained about Nina, her 5 years in Willowbrook, her shyness, her ice sculpting skills inherited from her grandmother, her decision to create goodbye gifts before leaving for Scotland. Nina Petrov? That quiet young woman who was always at the library. Mrs. Pembroke remembered her vaguely. She left. When? February 25th, the morning after the final sculpture. She drove to Scotland for a new job. Eleanor was amazed. She lived here 5 years and I barely knew her. I saw her around, of course, but never really talked to her. And she was this talented. Very talented, and very grateful to Willowbrook, even though she never felt she belonged. Over the following days, Clara told more people. Each person reacted with surprise and regret. I wish I'd known her better. I wish I'd talked to her more. I wish she'd felt welcome enough to stay connected. The village felt collective guilt. Someone had lived among them 5 years, created beautiful art for them, and left without anyone really knowing her. But that was her choice, Reverend Peters pointed out when Clara told him. She chose isolation. We can't blame ourselves for not forcing friendship on someone who seemed to prefer solitude. But maybe we could have tried harder, Mrs. Pembroke said. Made more effort to include her. Perhaps. Or perhaps Nina was working through something and needed the isolation she chose. People wanted to thank Nina, but she'd left no forwarding address at the Honeyed Leaf. Clara had an email address but felt hesitant to intrude. Maybe Nina wanted this separation, wanted to leave Willowbrook behind completely. In early March, Emma from the bookshop had an idea. What if we create a memorial to the sculptures? Document them somehow. We have hundreds of photographs from the 3 weeks they appeared. We could create a book or exhibition showing all the sculptures and telling Nina's story. A way of saying thank you even though she's not here to receive it. The village loved this idea. Emma organised the project. She collected photographs from everyone who'd taken them. She asked Clara to write the story. Clara composed it carefully. Nina's background, her 5 years in Willowbrook, her decision to create goodbye gifts, the 3 weeks of nightly sculpting, her departure. She wrote with warmth and understanding, honouring Nina's choice to remain isolated while celebrating the gift she'd given. The exhibition opened in April at the community centre. Photographs of all 25 sculptures, arranged chronologically, Nina's story told alongside them, the messages from each sculpture's base reproduced, the final miniature village given special prominence. The exhibition attracted hundreds of visitors, villagers and people from surrounding areas. Everyone was moved by the story. A shy artist giving beauty, someone saying goodbye through ice, a person who'd felt like an outsider but loved Willowbrook enough to leave gifts. In May, Clara finally decided to email Nina. She kept it brief. Dear Nina, the village wanted you to know your sculptures are remembered. We created an exhibition honouring them and telling your story. People were moved. Many regret not knowing you better while you were here. We hope Scotland is treating you well, and your new job is everything you'd hoped. With warm regards, Clara. Nina replied within a day. Dear Clara, thank you for the email and for telling my story. I've seen photos of the exhibition online. Someone posted them. I'm touched that the village cared enough to remember. Scotland is wonderful. The job is challenging and exciting. And I'm trying to be more social here. Slowly making friends, learning from my Willowbrook years what not to do. I don't regret being isolated there. I needed that time. But I'm ready for something different now. Thank you for understanding that. And thank you for keeping my secret until I'd left. That meant everything. With appreciation, Nina. Clara shared the email with Mrs. Pembroke and Eleanor. She's doing well. She's trying to connect more, that's good. Do you think she'll come back to visit? Eleanor wondered. Maybe someday. When enough time has passed. When she feels differently about the place. The exhibition remained up through May, then was taken down, but documented. The photographs were compiled into a book. The Frozen Fountain, Art and Farewell. Proceeds went to youth art programmes. The book sold well locally and online. People wanted the story and the images. Nina's creation had become part of Willowbrook's history. In June, something unexpected happened. The village received a package from Scotland. Inside was a sculpture, not ice, obviously, but carved from clear resin. A swan, identical to the first sculpture Nina had created. A note accompanied it. For Willowbrook, the first sculpture, preserved in a medium that won't melt. Place it somewhere public where people can see it and remember. With love, Nina. The village was thrilled. They decided to place it in the library where it could be seen year-round. A plaque explained its significance, the first of 25 ice sculptures created by Nina Petroff as her farewell gift to Willowbrook. In July, Clara corresponded more regularly with Nina. They'd become email friends, sharing life updates. Nina wrote about her new job, her slowly expanding social circle, her discovery of an ice sculpting community in Scotland. I found people who share my passion. We're planning a winter exhibition. It feels good to connect over art rather than forcing social connection over other things. Clara shared village news. People still talk about your sculptures. Children ask when they'll come back. I have to explain they were a one-time gift, but the memory remains strong. In August, Nina sent surprising news. I've been invited to create ice sculptures for Edinburgh's Winter Festival, a commission. professional this time. My Willowbrook sculptures got attention online. That led to this opportunity. I would never have had the courage to share my work publicly if I hadn't done the sculptures anonymously first. Willowbrook gave me that. Gave me a safe space to share my art without the pressure of identity attached. I'm grateful for that gift. Clara was thrilled for Nina. Your talent is being recognised. That's wonderful. Will you let us know when the festival happens? I think people would love to know. Please do share. I'm less private now, ready for recognition. That's growth, I think. In September, as autumn arrived, Clara organised a Nina update evening at the Honeyed Leaf. She invited everyone who'd been part of the exhibition project. She shared Nina's emails, her news about the Edinburgh Commission, her gratitude to the village. People were delighted. She's thriving. That's wonderful. Chapter 4. Connections and Revelations. In October, Nina emailed with a request. I've been thinking about Willowbrook, about my years there. I realise I left behind more than sculptures. I left behind opportunities, friendships I might have made if I'd been braver. I'd like to visit, maybe for a weekend if that's welcome. Clara replied immediately. You're absolutely welcome. Tell us when you're coming and we'll make sure people know. Though I suspect they'd love to meet you properly this time. Nina chose November. She'd drive down from Scotland, stay at the local inn, spend a weekend reconnecting with the place that had been home. The village prepared quietly. No big fuss. Nina wouldn't want that. But word spread. People wanted to meet the sculptor who'd left such beautiful gifts. Nina arrived on a Friday evening in mid-November. Clara met her at the inn. Nina looked different, more confident, more relaxed in her body. Scotland had been good for her. They hugged warmly. Thank you for making this possible, Nina said. For reaching out, for making me feel welcome to come back. You were always welcome. You just didn't know it. That evening, a small gathering at the Honeyed Leaf. Clara had invited about 20 people, those who'd worked on the exhibition, those who'd particularly loved the sculptures. No pressure, just conversation and tea. Nina was nervous walking in, but warmed up quickly. People thanked her for the sculptures, asked about her work, shared how the art had affected them. Mrs. Pembroke told Nina, You brought magic to our winter. Every morning people would check the fountain with excitement. Children especially loved it. You created community joy. That's a gift. Nina looked emotional. I never thought about it as community joy. I thought of it as my personal gift. But you're right. The joy was shared. That makes it even better. Tom Fletcher shared. My granddaughter visited during those weeks. She saw several of your sculptures. She went home and started trying to carve soap, imitating what she'd seen. You inspired a 7-year-old to try art. That's impact. Nina smiled, wiping tears. I hoped the sculptures would bring joy. I didn't know they'd inspire anyone. That's amazing. Throughout the evening, people shared stories. Where they were when they saw particular sculptures. Which ones they'd loved most. How they'd felt when the sculptures ended. Nina listened, visibly moved. These people had paid attention, had cared, had been affected by her art. That validation meant everything. Later, walking Nina back to the inn, Clara asked, How does it feel, being here again? Strange, but good. I spent 5 years here feeling like an outsider. Now I'm being welcomed like I belong. It's what I wanted then, but couldn't accept. I wasn't ready for connection. Now I am. What changed? Scotland forced me to try. New job meant working with a team. I couldn't hide in isolation. I had to learn to connect. Once I started, it got easier. I realised my isolation in Willowbrook wasn't the village's fault. It was mine. I chose it, and that's okay. I needed it then, but I don't need it anymore. So coming back feels different. I can accept welcome now. The next day, Saturday, Nina toured the village. Clara walked with her. They visited the fountain, now just an ordinary fountain preparing for winter. It's strange seeing it normal again, Nina said. When I worked on it every night, it felt like mine. Now it's just part of the village again. They visited the library to see the resin swan. Nina stood looking at it for a long time. This was my first sculpture. I remember being terrified that night. What if someone caught me? What if people hated it? But the fear was part of the thrill, creating something beautiful despite the fear. They had lunch at the local pub. Several people recognized Nina and stopped to thank her. She handled it well, graciously accepting thanks, answering questions about her process. She was more social than Clara had ever seen her. Scotland had definitely changed her. That afternoon, they attended the library's children's programme. The librarian, knowing Nina was visiting, had organised an ice sculpting demonstration. Nina taught children to carve soap, approximating ice sculpting techniques. The kids were enthralled. They asked dozens of questions. Nina answered patiently, encouraging their creativity. Watching her, Clara saw someone who'd found their voice and their confidence. That evening, a larger community gathering at the village hall. 50 or more people attended. Nina gave a talk about ice sculpting, the history, the techniques, her own journey learning the craft. She showed photos of the Willowbrook sculptures and explained how she'd created them. People were fascinated. They asked technical questions. Nina answered with enthusiasm. Then she shared something personal. I created these sculptures as goodbye gifts, but I realised now they were also hello gifts. Hello to the artist in me that I'd been hiding. Hello to the possibility of connection through art instead of through forced socialisation. Willowbrook gave me a safe space to discover that. I'll always be grateful. At the end of the evening, people lined up to thank Nina personally. She received each person warmly, no longer the shy woman who'd lived here in isolation. She'd transformed. Or perhaps not transformed, perhaps just revealed what had always been there beneath the shyness. Sunday morning, Nina's last day in Willowbrook, she asked Clara to walk with her one more time to the fountain. They stood looking at it in the November sun. I have a confession, Nina said. When I was creating those sculptures, I wasn't just saying goodbye to Willowbrook. I was saying goodbye to the version of myself who'd lived here, the isolated, scared version. I was using the sculptures to become someone new. And it worked. By the time I finished, by the time I drove to Scotland, I'd carved away the parts of myself I didn't want anymore, just like I carved away ice to reveal the sculptures hidden inside. Clara loved this metaphor. So the sculptures weren't just art, they were transformation. Exactly. Every night I carved, I was carving myself into someone braver. Nina paused, then said, I'd like to do something, with your permission. Next winter, I'd like to come back for a week and create one more set of sculptures. Not as many as before, maybe 5 or 7, but as a thank you, as a way of giving back to the place that helped me become who I am. Clara was thrilled. The village would love that, but Nina, you don't owe us anything. You already gave us so much. I know, but I want to. Not as goodbye this time, as connection, as a way of being part of Willowbrook even though I live elsewhere. Would that be okay? More than okay. It would be wonderful. Nina left that afternoon, driving back to Scotland with promises to return. Clara watched her go, feeling the satisfaction of a story reaching the right conclusion. Not an ending, but a transformation. A shy woman becoming confident. An isolated artist becoming connected. Goodbye gifts becoming hello gifts. Over the next few weeks, Clara shared Nina's plan to return for a sculpture week in the next winter. People were excited. They'd get to experience the ice art again, but this time knowing the artist. This time being able to thank her in person. This time making Nina feel like she belonged. In December, as winter returned to Willowbrook, Clara found herself looking at the fountain differently. Empty now, dormant, waiting, but full of possibility. Next winter it would come alive again. Nina's sculptures would return. In January, Nina emailed with updates. Her Edinburgh Festival commission had gone well. She'd received more requests. Ice sculpting was becoming her secondary career alongside her tech job. I'm considering transitioning fully to art in a few years. Taking the risk of being a full-time artist, that's terrifying but exciting. Willowbrook taught me that vulnerability in art, creating and sharing despite fear, is worth it. I'm applying that lesson to bigger decisions now. Clara replied with encouragement. You're talented enough to succeed as a full-time artist, and brave enough. You proved that with the Willowbrook sculptures. In February, exactly 1 year after the sculptures had ended, the village held a remembrance event. They gathered at the fountain and shared memories of their favourite sculptures. Children who'd seen them talked about which ones they'd loved most. Adults discussed the impact the sculptures had on that cold February. Someone had created a slideshow of all the photographs. They projected it on a screen in the village hall. 25 sculptures, each appearing for a few seconds. A chronicle of Nina's 3-week artistic goodbye. The evening was nostalgic and sweet, a celebration of temporary beauty and lasting impact. In spring, Nina began planning her return visit and sculpture week. She'd come in January of the following year, almost exactly 2 years after the original sculptures. She'd create 5 new sculptures over 5 days, different from before, but carrying the same spirit. "I'm thinking of themes around connection and community this time," she wrote. "Last time was about goodbye. This time will be about belonging, about finding your place, about how community can be built through art and shared experience." In summer, the village prepared for Nina's return. Not extensively. She didn't want fuss. But they made plans. Lodging at the inn, work lights for the fountain area, permission from the village council, publicity so people would know when to expect the sculptures. By autumn, everything was arranged. Nina would arrive January 10th. She'd create sculptures January 11th through 15th. 5 consecutive days of art. 5 opportunities for people to meet her while she worked. Unlike before, this wouldn't be secret. She'd work publicly, interact with people. Use the sculpture creation as community engagement. In December, Clara received an unexpected email from Nina. "I've been thinking about the difference between my first sculptures and these upcoming ones. The first time I hid. This time I'll be visible. That terrifies me still. But it also excites me. It's proof of how much I've changed, how much Willowbrook and Scotland together have changed me. Thank you for facilitating this, for making it possible for me to come back not as a ghost, but as a person. I'm ready to be seen." Clara wrote back, "You were always worth seeing. You just needed to believe that. I'm glad you do now." In early January, final preparations. The inn was ready. The fountain area was prepped. The village was buzzing with anticipation. Nina would arrive on Friday evening. She'd rest on Saturday and Sunday. Then 5 days of sculpting, Monday through Friday. Each sculpture would remain for 24 hours before she created the next. On Friday, January 10th, Nina arrived. Clara met her at the inn again. Nina looked nervous but determined. "I can do this. I can be public about my art. I've learned. I've grown." "You can absolutely do this," Clara assured her. That evening, a small welcome gathering at the Honeyed Leaf. Just Clara, Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor, and a few others. Intimate rather than overwhelming. Nina shared her plans for the 5 sculptures. Each will represent an aspect of community, connection, belonging, support, celebration, home, 5 themes, 5 sculptures. Sunday. Nina walked around the village reconnecting with the place. She visited the library, saw her resin swan again. She walked past cottages and shops, remembering her years here. She stood at the fountain, preparing mentally for the work ahead. Monday, January 13th, the first public sculpture day. Nina arrived at the fountain at 9 in the morning. Not midnight this time, but daylight hours. She'd work from 9 to 5 with breaks. People could watch, ask questions, interact. It was completely different from the secret nighttime sessions 2 years ago. Clara was there when Nina began. So were about 20 other people, curious and excited. Nina addressed them briefly before starting. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting my art. I'm creating a sculpture about connection today. Feel free to watch, ask questions, or just be present. Your energy will be part of the creation." Then she began to work, carving, shaping, transforming the frozen fountain. People watched, fascinated. Children asked questions. Nina answered while working, explaining techniques. By afternoon, the sculpture was taking shape, 2 figures reaching toward each other, hands about to touch. By 5 o'clock it was complete, beautiful, evocative, clearly about connection. People applauded. Nina, tired but happy, smiled. Thank you for sharing this day with me. Come back tomorrow for the next one. That evening, dozens of people visited the fountain to see the sculpture illuminated by streetlights. Clara heard their comments. It's beautiful. I love that she did it publicly this time. You can see how much work it takes. Tuesday, the second sculpture day. More people came to watch. Nina created a sculpture representing belonging, a tree with roots spreading deep and branches reaching wide. People sat on benches nearby, watching the creation process. Some brought thermoses of tea, others brought books and read while Nina worked. It became a community event. Wednesday, the theme was support. Nina created interlocking hands, each supporting the other. The crowd watching had grown to 50 or more. People came and went throughout the day, children on school lunch break, retirees spending the afternoon, workers stopping by before or after shifts. Nina engaged with everyone, answering questions, sharing stories about ice sculpting. Thursday, the theme was celebration. Nina created fireworks frozen in ice, bursts of joy captured in sculpture. The watching crowd was even larger. Someone brought hot chocolate to share. Someone else brought cookies from Midnight Baker. It had become a village gathering, everyone participating in Nina's art through their presence and support. Friday, the final day. The theme was home. Nina created the most ambitious sculpture yet, a house with windows glowing from within, welcoming and warm. As she worked, people reflected on the week. This has been amazing. Every day something new and beautiful. She's so talented and so generous to share her process with us. By 4 o'clock, the house sculpture was nearly complete. Nina added final details, making the glowing windows perfect. Then she stepped back, exhausted but satisfied. The crowd, over 100 people had gathered for the final sculpture, applauded long and loud. Nina bowed, emotional. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for supporting me, for making Willowbrook feel like home, even though I don't live here anymore. That evening, the village organised a thank you dinner for Nina at the village hall. Everyone was invited. The room was packed. People brought food, shared stories, celebrated the week of art. Nina circulated, talking to everyone, no longer shy or isolated. She'd found her place, not as a permanent resident, but as an artist connected to this community. During dinner, the village presented Nina with a gift, a plaque declaring her an honorary citizen of Willowbrook. For bringing beauty and inspiration to our village through art, for showing us the power of transformation, for reminding us that goodbyes can become hellos. With gratitude and affection, Willowbrook. Nina cried reading it. This means everything. Thank you. Saturday, Nina's departure day. But before she left, she did something unexpected. She created one more sculpture. Small, quick, just an hour of work. A swan, like her very first sculpture 2 years ago. Full circle, she explained to Clara and the crowd that had gathered to watch. I started with a swan. I end with a swan. Same subject, different artist. 2 years ago, I carved a swan while hiding from connection. Today, I carve a swan while surrounded by community. That's the journey. That's what Willowbrook gave me. The swan was beautiful. Simple but elegant. And when Nina finished, she didn't pack up and leave. She stayed for hours, talking with people, accepting hugs, making promises to return again. Finally, it was time to go. She hugged Clara last. Thank you for everything, for discovering me, for keeping my secret, for reaching out after I left, for making this week possible. You've been a bridge between the me who was and the me who am. You did the work of becoming, Clara replied. I just held space for it. Nina drove away late Saturday afternoon. The swan sculpture remained, glowing in the winter sun. People visited it all evening, taking photos, reflecting on the week. By Sunday morning, temperatures had risen and the swan was melting. By Monday, it was gone. But the memory remained. In February, Clara reflected on the full journey, from mysterious nighttime sculptures to public daytime creations, from goodbye to hello, from isolation to connection. Nina had used art to transform herself, and in the process, had transformed how Willowbrook understood art, connection, and the possibility of change. In March, Nina sent a group email to everyone she'd met during her visit. "I've made a decision. I'm transitioning to full-time art, leaving my tech job, taking the risk, opening a studio in Edinburgh, teaching ice sculpting, creating commissions, living the artist life. Willowbrook gave me the courage to do this. Those first anonymous sculptures taught me I was an artist. The public sculptures taught me I could share that identity. Now I'm making it my life. Thank you for being part of my journey." Clara shared the email at the Honeyed Leaf. People were thrilled for Nina. She found her calling. She's brave. We helped her realise that. In April, Nina's studio opened. She sent photos, a beautiful space with ice blocks, tools, examples of her work. She was teaching classes, taking commissions, building a life around art. She was thriving. In May, Clara received a special email from Nina. "I've been commissioned to create ice sculptures for a major international festival in Norway. This is huge for my career. But here's the thing. They want me to recreate my Willowbrook series, the 25 original sculptures. They've seen the photos and want to feature them in an art and place exhibition. I'd be recreating them one by one over several weeks in Norway, with permission to tell the story of where they came from and why. I wanted to ask Willowbrook's permission. These sculptures belong to the village in some way. They were gifts to you. Is it okay if I recreate them elsewhere and tell your story?" Clara consulted with Mrs. Pembroke, Eleanor, and others. The consensus was immediate and enthusiastic. "Of course, Willowbrook's story deserves to be told. Share it widely." Nina did the Norway commission in August. It was hugely successful. People loved the sculptures and the story behind them. International art magazines covered it. Nina was interviewed about her journey from isolation to connection, from secret artist to public creator. Willowbrook was mentioned prominently. The village became known as the place that nurtured an artist, that inspired transformation. Tourism increased slightly, people wanting to see the village that had been immortalised in ice. The fountain became a minor landmark. In September, Nina visited again. Just a brief weekend checking in. She was different each time Clara saw her. More confident, more settled in her identity. "I'm happy," Nina told Clara simply. "Truly happy. Doing what I love. Connected to people. Making a living from art. It's everything I wanted but didn't think was possible." "You made it possible," Clara replied, "through courage and persistence." "We made it possible," Nina corrected. "Me doing the work. You and Willowbrook providing the space for it. Partnership." In October, the anniversary of Nina's first return visit approached. The village planned a small celebration, 1 year since she'd come back and reconnected. They didn't expect Nina to attend. She was in Scotland, busy with commissions. But she surprised them. She showed up Friday evening unannounced. "I couldn't miss this," she explained, celebrating the moment I stopped running from connection and started embracing it. The celebration was warm and joyful. People shared their memories of both sculpture series. Children showed artwork they'd created inspired by Nina. The library displayed the growing collection of books and articles featuring Nina's work and Willowbrook's story. That evening, Nina made an announcement. "I've been thinking about something. Each winter I'd like to come back and create at least one sculpture. Not a whole series, just one. A yearly gift. A way of maintaining connection between Scotland and here. Would that be welcome?" The village was delighted. "We'd love that. An annual Nina sculpture, a winter tradition." And so it became. Every January, Nina would return for a few days. She'd create one sculpture publicly, working while people watched and chatted. It became a beloved tradition, Nina's winter sculpture. People looked forward to it each year, wondered what theme she'd choose, gathered to watch her work. 3 years after the original sculptures, Clara reflected on the complete journey. A shy woman had arrived in Willowbrook 5 years earlier, lived in isolation, then left via beautiful goodbye gifts. Those gifts had led to reconnection, to transformation, to an artistic career, and to an ongoing relationship between artist and village. It was a story about how art could bridge distances, between people, between past and present, between who we were and who we become. The fountain remained a focal point. In summer, children played around it. In winter, it froze and waited for Nina's annual sculpture. It had become more than a functional village feature. It was a canvas for connection, a symbol of transformation, a reminder that beauty could appear in unexpected places from unexpected people. And Clara, serving tea and witnessing stories as she always did, carried this one close to her heart. The story of Nina and the frozen fountain. The story of how someone could live in a place 5 years without belonging, then leave and find belonging through that leaving. The story of how art could say what words couldn't. How transformation happened through courage and community together. How goodbyes could become hellos, and isolation could become connection, and fear could become creation. Chapter 5. Lasting Legacy. 5 years after the original sculptures, Nina's annual tradition continued. She'd become a renowned ice sculptor internationally, featured in festivals worldwide. But every January, without fail, she returned to Willowbrook for her annual sculpture. The 5th year, she did something special. Instead of creating alone, she invited community participation. She'd create the basic structure, then villagers could add details under her guidance. Children carved simple patterns. Adults added flourishes. Everyone contributed to the final piece. The result was less technically perfect than Nina's solo work, but more meaningful. "This is what art should be," Nina told the gathered crowd. Collaborative, inclusive, about community creating beauty together. A tree with every person's contribution visible, became one of the most photographed pieces Nina ever created. Not because of technical brilliance, but because of heart. The village kept the tradition. Even when Nina couldn't come, twice in 10 years, work commitments prevented it, local artists would create a sculpture in her honour. The January tradition persisted. In the 8th year after the original sculptures, Nina published a book. The Frozen Fountain, Art, Fear and Finding Home. It told her full story: childhood in Russia, learning to sculpt from her grandmother, moving to England, the isolated years in Willowbrook, the goodbye sculptures, the transformation, the career that followed. Willowbrook featured prominently. The book sold well, particularly in artistic communities. It became required reading in some art school courses about public art and community engagement. Nina donated a portion of proceeds to Willowbrook's youth art programs. "Giving back to the place that gave me so much," she explained. The village used the funds to establish permanent art programs, ice sculpting workshops in winter, other art forms in other seasons. Nina's gift had multiplied, not just her sculptures, but the inspiration to make Willowbrook a more artistic community overall. In the 10th year, a major milestone, a decade since the original sculptures. The village planned an anniversary celebration. They invited Nina to spend a full week creating a special series. She agreed, taking time off from other commissions. That January, Nina returned and created 5 new sculptures over 5 days, just like her first public series years before. But these were different. More ambitious, more complex, reflecting her decade of growth as an artist. Each sculpture was a masterpiece. People came from surrounding areas to see them. The celebration week included gallery showings of Nina's work, talks about art and community, workshops teaching sculpture basics. The village hall was packed every evening. On the final night, after the last sculpture was complete, the village surprised Nina. They'd commissioned a permanent art installation for the fountain, a bronze plaque embedded in the stone. It read, "Nina Petrov found her voice here through ice and art. She taught us that goodbye can become hello, that isolation can become connection, and that beauty appears when courage meets community. In gratitude, Willowbrook." Nina cried reading it. "This is my home," she said, "not where I live, but where I belong. Thank you for making that true." Over the following years, the relationship between Nina and Willowbrook deepened. She visited not just for sculpture creation, but for friendships. She'd stay with Clara sometimes, catching up over tea. She'd dinner with Mrs. Pembroke and Eleanor, sharing life updates. She'd visit the library and bookshop, supporting local businesses. She'd become truly part of the community, despite living elsewhere. In the 15th year, Nina made an announcement. She was opening a second studio in Willowbrook. Not relocating from Scotland, but maintaining 2 spaces. I want to be here more, teach here, create here, give back more directly. She purchased a small cottage, ironically not far from where she'd lived during her isolated years. But this time she knew neighbours. She invited people over. She hosted art gatherings. She taught workshops from her home studio. She'd come full circle. The place she'd left feeling like an outsider had become the place she chose to partially return to as a full member of the community. Clara reflected on this journey often. 15 years from the first mysterious sculpture to Nina's permanent presence in the village. From hidden artist to community member. From goodbye to hello to welcome home. "How do you feel about how everything turned out?" Clara asked Nina one afternoon over tea at the Honeyed Leaf. "Grateful," Nina said simply. "Grateful I had the courage to leave, which required making the sculptures. Grateful the sculptures led to you discovering me. Grateful you reached out after I left. Grateful the village welcomed me back. Every step was necessary. Even the isolated years. They gave me space to grow in my own way. Would you change anything?" "Not anymore. At first I wished I'd been braver during those 5 years, made friends, connected more. But now I understand I wasn't ready. I needed isolation to find my artistic voice. I needed goodbye to learn how to say hello. The journey was exactly what it needed to be, As winter approached each year, the village anticipated Nina's sculpture with the same excitement they'd felt that first February 15 years ago. The tradition had become part of Willowbrook's identity. The fountain had become a symbol of transformation and welcome. And Nina had become living proof that people could change, that communities could nurture that change, and that art could bridge all distances. Clara stood at the fountain one snowy January evening, watching families gather to see Nina's latest creation. Children who'd been toddlers during the original sculptures were now teenagers, teaching their younger siblings about the tradition. The story had become legend, passed down, embellished slightly, but core truth remaining. Beauty appears when courage meets community. And Clara knew this story would continue. Long after she stopped serving tea, long after Nina stopped sculpting, the fountain would remain. The tradition would persist. The memory of a shy woman who found her voice through ice would inspire future generations. Because the best stories don't end. They transform, just like Nina had. From frozen art to flowing connection. From goodbye to eternal hello. Thank you for visiting Willowbrook tonight and sharing Nina's story. Sometimes we need to say goodbye to find ourselves. Sometimes isolation is necessary before connection becomes possible. Sometimes art speaks louder than words. And sometimes the places we leave become the places we choose to return to, not as the same person, but as who we were meant to become. May you carry the knowledge that transformation is possible, that courage can be found in creating beauty, that communities can nurture growth while respecting the need for solitude, and that goodbyes aren't always endings. Sometimes they're beginnings in disguise. Rest well, dear friend, until we meet again at the Honeyed Leaf. Good night.